रेडियो जिंदगी 1170 AM पर वेलकम लिसनर्स, मैं हूं आपके साथ ईरा। शो लेके आए हैं द शार्प पिराली लॉ शो व्हेन वी आर वंस अगेन जॉइंड बाय अटॉर्नी शार्प पिराली, who is the founder, president and managing attorney of the Sharp Pirali Law Group, which is right here in Newark, California. He is a member of the American Immigration Lawyers Association as well as the State Bar of California. He is a passionate advocate of human rights, civil rights, social action and social services, and he has a strong interest in and knowledge of the political legal system in the US. He formed his law group to work on the causes that he feels most ardently about. The law group focuses on the immigration law with an emphasis on employment-based immigration, and he helps his clients all over the US. Offices are in Newark, which is right here, San Francisco, also in California, and Washington, D.C., so on East Coast and West Coast. Listeners, if you'd like to get in touch with him, you could do so right now while we speak. You can call us during the show on the studio number 510-657-1170. That's 510-657-1170. If you'd like to have a private discussion about your case with Attorney Sharp Pirali, you can call his office number and make an appointment, 510-742-5887. That's 510-742-5887, and get more information about him and his practice on the website piralilaw.com. That's PEERALLYLAW.com. Attorney Shah, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Ara. Good morning to all the listeners. Thank you so much for welcoming me again on our show. And of course, we're going to discuss about immigration, a little bit of politics, don't know how much, and hopefully we'll have Sharif joining us at 10:30, Ira. So he will be calling or you will be calling him at 10:30
yes,
for him to join us. So today, before I start, of course, anything I'm telling you today is my opinion. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions. And of course, so many things, some good news, some bad news, and so many other news. So we're going to start with the good news. The good news is that, remember last week we were talking about the situation of the memo and the law that actually has made difficult for consulting companies to hire people because of actually the increase in salary. But a judge just struck it down, which is a good news. And also the part of it seems the part of 1 year that consulting company gets when they renew their H-1B is also going to be down. It's getting cut off. And also we have the situation of for the students. The stamp, the removal of the stamp also might be cut off. So all this good news coming, and hopefully the salary will be back to a normal salary soon, and something which is more plausible, and that will be very helpful to the people who are applying for H-1B, because as you know, that new rule made it almost impossible for many small companies to hire people because the salary was too high. It was almost like sometimes 80% up, etc., etc. So a salary of 100,000 will become around sometimes 150,000, which is not really the real, doesn't even reflect reality. But the good news is that the federal judge just took this down. So let's see when they're going to adjust it on the system. And again, I'm talking about here the H-1B rules, which really made it very difficult on many consulting companies, especially even bigger companies, to hire people. So that's one good thing happening. Now the other thing that I forgot to mention last week is DACA is back. As you know, DACA was the deferred action for childhood arrivals, and it allowed people who came to the United States before they were 16, they came with their parents, to file for a deferred action, which means gives them an EAD. And now luckily, it's out, it's back, and people will still be able to apply for that. Now again, a lot of things happening on the immigration side. They have tightened up as much as they could on everything that they can, and sometimes we are seeing it is really kind of unfortunate that we have to basically reverse things that were happening, and now we are seeing a lot of good things going to happen under Biden. And again, I'm still kind of a little bit worried the way things are going, although everything is pointing out like as such that Biden will take power on the 28th. But now we are hearing people like Michael Flynn, who just got pardoned, calling for basically a coup, asking the military to take over and declare martial law. And that's something that we all have been worried about under Trump. It's getting ridiculous. They lost every single of their lawsuit, by the way, 40 of them to win. And I've never seen this, like someone was saying, it's the only president that lost 40 times in the same election. So it is really kind of getting ridiculous. And the lawyers on his sides are really very aggressive. Plus, many of them are actually kind of violating ethical rules, and the state bar is not taking any action. That's what bothers me, actually. If we make small mistakes, the state bar is all over us. But those guys are getting away with so many things, and that's kind of really kind of double standard. And I know a few lawyers who have put official complaint at the state bar against Giuliani, against what's his name, DeGenova or something like that. And more will be coming, so let's see what happens next. And again, this is not the part of the political part, because the political part is something really you can hear every day, and a lot of people are confused what's happening really. So I'm not going to go into that, but the good news is that we are seeing a reversal of many decisions, and we are hoping that under Biden we're going to see a huge change in well, it's not huge change, it's just going back to normal. Hopefully. There's no going back to normal 100% because of the COVID situation, but at the same time, at least some kind of normalcy. We will have some kind of transparency. We will know exactly when we are fighting the USCIS, how they are behaving, and we can act accordingly, and we will know we'll be facing a very fair adversary, right? Right now when we're dealing with the DHS, it's just like a gamble. You can call on them to basically do what is right. If you don't get an officer who's really kind of have some kind of humane values in his head, he will just do whatever he wants. And that's one thing that is really has been the worst part when doing cases, because cases that were getting approved before are not getting approved, and we're not getting approved under Trump. And that's really something that we had to reinvent ourselves to make things happen. Although we were still getting a lot of approvals, we were still seeing a lot of denials for very, how to put it, like very stupid reasons. I should put in the simple terms. So now, hopefully, with the changes, we are going to see some good stuff happening. But at the same time, we are going to see some difficulties that Biden is going to have, because he has been passing so many rules one after the other that to reverse them might take some time. And in the meantime, people will be stuck, and hopefully courts are actually so it is going to be a really tough situation for Biden and Harris when they take power in the next few months. They have to deal with so many issues at the same time, and immigration will be a big part of it, but at the same time, how much can they do to really relieve everybody? So that's one thing we will have to watch, because it's going to definitely affect all our clients. It's going to affect not only our clients, but our friends, our people we know. And definitely I will recommend that you follow me on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/SharpiraliLaw. I will try to push up. I didn't put a lot of updates because things were changing so fast, but hopefully when we deal with with Biden, we will have more clear understanding and more humane factors that will come into play. Now, at the same time, as you know, COVID is really hitting hard and is going to get worse according to Dr. Fauci, and that's going to cause a lot of problems too, because immigration under COVID has been really, really tricky. Many people couldn't travel, so we had to file special visas for them to stay, while other people will be or really kind of counting. For example, they had during the time when COVID started, the USCIS, the DHS put an alert saying that, okay, we will let people stay, you can file this and that, but no, most people have not gotten approval on those visas, so they're stuck now. Should they file a new one or just leave it like that? That's going to be a case-by-case basis, so I recommend that you give us a call if you want to assess your case, 510-742-5887. We can help you pretty much in everything immigration. Any questions on your side, Ira?
No, not on my side. We were getting a caller, but I think the call got disconnected. But listener, if you are still there, if you would still like to ask a question, please do call us back. 510-657-1170 is the studio number. 510-657-1170. Attorney Shapirali's office number is 510-742-5887. 510-742-5887, and the website is piralilaw.com. That's PERALLY.com. So do get in touch with him. Let's continue, Attorney Shah.
Yes, indeed. And as you know, also now there's this other thing, also the 944 form, which was removed. That's the declaration of assets for people who are filing for their family. Was removed by court, but now it's back. So hopefully that will also be removed by Biden. So we are expecting some good things to happen, provided he gets a smooth transition. Because now it seems like even Attorney General Barr, who's really like close friends to Trump, is saying there was no fraud in the elections, and we have to expect that ultimately he will have to back down once the electors vote on December 14th, and we'll have that in 14 days. We will know, not 14 days, 12 days, we will know how things are going to unfold. But in the meantime, he's passing as many laws as possible against everybody, so including immigration mostly, trying to block everything possible, making things more difficult, and hoping that it will stick. It's like throwing the kitchen sink and hoping it will stick, and then people will have to fight this. And so we have almost like 50 days of nightmare going on right now. So we have to basically kind of be alert on that. And also hopefully I'll have Sharif call. Probably we can call Sharif in 5 minutes.
Okay.
Ira. So we're going to discuss a little bit about the potential. And also, as you know, the dates started retrogressing not retrogressing, but moving a little bit backward under the EB3 filing date. So that is sign that we're going to see another retrogression, not retrogression, but going backward. Well, because retrogression, we understand, is really big backward, but it's going to be a little bit coming out. So we are going to see many things happening. So people who are downgrading to EB3, just talk to an attorney before you make the move, an independent attorney, because many attorneys, they are rushing to do that because, of course, this is money, but at the same time, you have to look at what is happening to you. Is it worth it for you to downgrade, or should you downgrade and file a national interest waiver, a bit like Sharif was saying last time? So it's a lot of things that are going to be happening, and is happening as we speak. Are happening, as we speak, and every day we are seeing new rules coming up with the USCIS, and luckily we are having still good federal judges who are still fair and trying to knock them down. But how many of them will they be able to knock down, and at the same time, how many will Biden be able to knock down? Because remember, he's going to be faced with unless we change the Senate, the balance of power changes. We are going to see a lot of difficulties, just like Obama had to deal with everything he needed to do, even simple things they were blocking him. And that's very much what has been happening, and people don't understand. They think the president had a clear mandate, although he did. the Senate really blocked Obama, and even Congress at one point when they were a majority. I mean, even the House of Representatives, because Congress means Senate and the House of Representatives, they also blocked him when the GOP had a majority there. So the same thing will probably be happening under Biden, because that's how they roll, unfortunately. Now, at the end of the day, it is important that we actually kind of make sure that things are being done properly on your cases, because any small mistakes you're going to see yourself with a denial, and we are seeing it in few cases where small mistakes of people are actually doing that. I think Sharif is here. Sharif, are you there?
Hey Shah, how are you? Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm doing well, my friend. I'm doing well. How are things going there?
Everything is going great. Everything is wonderful. We're obviously had a lot of turkey over the weekend holiday, and now I'm trying to spend more time on the treadmill.
Well, you should not have to
spend more time on the treadmill. Doing exactly what? Are you sitting on it? Are you walking on it? Or are you just having more food on it?
I'm hanging my coat on it.
That's what I thought.
I spend time on the treadmill and everybody's sleeping on it.
So you could be sitting and watching TV on it, but you see, hanging clothes on a treadmill or any exercise machine is probably the best use of it.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
it's the most common use of it, at least.
Well, with all the things going on, run around, so you don't need the treadmill, right? Well, you can really run with all at the same time with the COVID. So I hope things are doing well for you there, Sharif, and of course we forgot to say Happy Thanksgiving, ladies. This is one of my favorite holidays, because it's really kind of entails a holiday for everybody, and Happy Thanksgiving belated to everybody. So Sharif, tell us what's going on there, what's going on in your arena, EB1, National Interest Waiver, and first, what do you think of what's going on the Biden side? Are we going to have a coup? I'm expecting.
Yeah, I think that all the indications are that most of what Trump is saying is all just political, nonsense. It's very clear that the wheels of government are turning toward the Biden administration. Even the GSA, which is the General Service Administration, has already made an ascertainment, which is an official acknowledgement that Biden has won the election, and that's a Trump administrator that made that ascertainment. And the biggest news of all was the Attorney General William Barr had basically declared that there was no fraud in the elections, and that this is all nonsense, and all of the states where there was controversy, or I guess invented controversy, have also certified the decision for Biden. So really, it's just a bunch of baloney at this point. I think I was looking at one statistic that out of 40 lawsuits, Trump has already lost 39 of them. So I think that it's a foregone conclusion that Biden will be sworn in. And with respect to where we're going, I think it's a really, really great time to think about, for those of you who are in a situation or a class of professional achievement where you're thinking about a national interest waiver or an EB1A, now is the time to start that preparation, because basically the new administration will come in January 20th. I think we could probably estimate, based on historical information, that by March you'll have the new USCIS directors in position, and you're going to have a much more favorable adjudication process than we have now. So that is, it's really important to get in front of that. You don't want to wait until March to start preparing. You want to start preparing now, and that'll put you in a situation where you are, going to be very, very successful. One thing I think a lot of people mention to me sometimes, well, what about H-1B? They're going to be inundated with that. or your office will be inundated with that. I think it's very clear that the departments that adjudicate the EB1A and the national interest waiver in particular are insulated from the departments that adjudicate the H-1B. And in our practice as well, the team that's handling most of the H-1B cases is separate from the team that's handling the national interest waiver and EB1A cases. So it's not like we're distracted or something. We are definitely, focused on making sure that everyone is getting the absolute, most highest degree of attention possible so that we can meet all of those requirements and put you in a position to be successful.
Indeed, Sharif, what you just mentioned is very important. We have kind of departmentalized or compartmentalized our team. So some people focus only on H-1Bs, although pretty much everybody can work on everything. We have done the focus, like your team work on EB1, national interest waivers, E2 visas, O visas, L visas, things like that, and it makes it's a lot easier also for us to process, because then you have some kind of expertise in one area, and that gives us this edge on our cases. So, Sharif, tell us a little bit what's happening lately, and what are you seeing in terms of people are looking for? Actually, I know now a lot of people seeing the retrogression starting on the EB3. They want to go back to their EB1, and in fact, I recommend that, because all we saw on EB3, by the way, is not a final action date. It's just a filing date, which is just a piece of the meat itself. So it's not the real thing. So EB1 can be a savior, and even a national interest waiver can be a savior. Tell us a little bit about that, Sharif.
Sure. And if you don't mind, I just wanted to touch on one other huge, news from the Biden standpoint. That is the incoming head of the Department of Homeland Security. His name is Alejandro Mayorkas. He is going to be the first, Latino American head of the agency, and he's the former deputy director of USCIS, deputy secretary of USCIS. So he's very, very familiar with USCIS as an agency and how it works, and I think that you're going to see a lot of improvements there. So much of, I think, the attention of the administration is probably going to be to resolve the DACA situation, which is the deferred action for childhood arrivals. So I think those of you who are in the employment-based side, you still need to, follow that all of the above kind of strategy of making sure that you're doing everything you can to get your status. Hopefully there's going to be better policies there with, H-4EADs and, all the other factors, but I don't necessarily foresee that there's going to be a huge improvement with some of the, back end, the delays, because most of this will require congressional action, and I don't think that, it's going to be as high of a priority as, for example, DACA, and that is just basically a result of political pressure. So, I think you're right, Shah, in focusing the attention to continue to upgrade your status. So if you're in an EB2 situation, you want to upgrade to an EB1. If you're in an EB, 2 and you've downgraded to EB3, you want to, probably file a national interest waiver under EB2 and then look into whether you can qualify for EB1 because, all of that is going to still be necessary. But ultimately, we're going to have a better adjudication chance, meaning the review of your case will be more favorable than it has been over the past 4 years. So that is great news. So preparing now and filing, I think, by March is definitely a huge, benefit and important strategy. So with that, I apologize. I didn't want to digress too much, but I thought that was important that we at least mention incoming.
It's very important, actually. I forgot to mention that because it's major. having someone like him now in charge. At least now we are having adults in charge instead of having nieces, sisters, brothers, kids, family members. That's ridiculous. It sounds so much a banana republic when we hear now. Exactly. Now when you look at it, it's like we lived in an alternate world with those guys. Corruption. Today, did you hear that he's selling pardons? Can you imagine that?
Yeah.
It's like even in third world countries, we don't hear that much of kind of nonsense. And people are taking it normal. It's like America has really lost its ways, right? And when you look at things, how can we even have accepted all this? You know, now when we dig into the kind of mess he did, now we are looking at almost maybe by the time he leaves 350,000 dead under COVID, and all those hospitals fully 125% of what they were supposed to contain. It's like they voted for a monster, and now we are paying for it. And I don't care.
And it was a close election. It's not like they learned their lesson. I mean, he got even more votes than last time, but thankfully, people stepped up and the turnout was higher. But it wasn't.
That's another thing that kind of worries me now, because that means if there is some kind of turmoil, if those guys decide we can ultimately end up in a civil war, which is not going to be pretty. Last time it happened, the entire country was in a mess, but it was a long time ago when people were still using old rifles to fight. This time we're going to see really bad things happening. Let's hope at least we have the military and everything kind of set up. And well, that's a long story, but let's talk a little bit about back to immigration.
Sure.
Sharif, tell us a little bit about EB1, Sharif, because we have not talked about EB1. Tell us a little bit about people who can qualify, because lots of times when I get calls, I talk to an attorney, he say, I don't qualify because I don't have publications, I don't have this, I don't have that. But that's not the case, right? Tell us a little bit about cases where you don't have publication, you still get EB1, right?
Absolutely. No, just in the past week alone, not even the past week, I mean, today's only Wednesday, so in the past 2 days, we've had, 2 approval come through from the EB1 standpoint. In both of those cases, there was no publication at all. And that is, something that I hope people are finally waking up to. I think we have woken up most people about this issue. I mean, you have to understand there's a difference between a requirement and a criteria. So a requirement is something you must have. That without it, you will not be approved. There is no publication requirement in an EB1A. There is no publication requirement in an EB1A. There is a criteria. There are 10 criteria. One of the 10 criteria is that the individual has published scholarly articles. If you are not in the business of publishing scholarly articles, then don't even worry about it. Likewise, there is a criteria that says you've displayed your artwork in an exhibit. Well, if you're not an artist, don't worry about it. It doesn't apply to you. There are other criteria that will apply. For example, you may have an original contribution of major significance to the field. Perhaps you have designed or developed a solution, right? That has basically the main thing that you're looking for is, has your design or development of a solution transcended the organization that you work for? That is what an EB1A is about. It's about recognition of your work within your field. So the reason why a criteria like scholarly articles is relevant is because an individual whose business is to publish scholarly articles has been recognized by some third-party publisher and has had their work, published, right? Where if you are not in that business, don't worry about it. Maybe you're in the business of designing and developing software architecture. Now, that software architecture that you have designed and developed, has it made an impact beyond your particular organization or company. That is the recognition that we are looking for an EB1A case. Design, development of architecture solution. Design, development of hardware solution. Design, development of, we've done many oil and gas cases, right? So maybe you've created a solution to unconventional oil reservoir extraction, right? Something along those lines is really going to get you the most important criteria of all, which is original contribution of major significance to the field of endeavor. The other important criteria to look at is whether you have performed in a critical or leading role for an organization that has a distinguished reputation. Now, listen carefully to the language, right? Perform. So it's about performance. It's not about employment. It's about performance. Maybe you are a contractor working at a state government agency. So you don't have to be employed by that state government agency. You may have, a year or 2 year stint there, creating a new database, for example. That is performance in a critical role. What does critical mean? Critical means that the work that you are doing or have done is significant to the outcome of the organization's activities, right? So the work you've done within the organization is significant to the company or to the agency or to the employer or to the association or organization. This is what critical role is about. Leading role, so you can perform in a critical role or you can perform in a leading role. Those are two different things. A leading role is something that is based on your title or where you stand within the organizational chart. So if, for example, you are a CTO or you are a lead product developer or have a title that projects some kind of leading role. You're leading a particular department within the organization, right? So you are leading a leading role. If you report to the C-suite, you are in a leading role for the organization. So you have either critical or leading role for an organization that has a distinguished reputation. So now the focus of the analysis is on the organization. What is the organization? Is it one that has an excellent reputation? What does that mean? Well, let's think about it now, because this entire analysis is about recognition within your field. So if you perform in a critical role for an organization that has a distinguished reputation, that distinguished reputation should be specific to your field, to your area of endeavor, because then your argument is going to be very sound. It's going to state that I perform in a leading or critical role for an organization that has a distinguished reputation within my field. What does that mean? It means that I'm at the highest level of my company, which is at the highest level of my field. Therefore, by extension, I am recognized as operating at the highest level of my field. That is why it's important to demonstrate critical or leading role within an organization that has a distinguished reputation. These are the most important criteria. Much more important than publishing scholarly articles.
Sharif. Yes, that's a question. But can you elaborate a little bit on that thought on distinguishing yourself in a reputable organization or company? It has to be the top Fortune 500 companies or any company which has a good name?
It's not necessarily that it has to be a Fortune 500 company. This is where I think it gets to the description of your field of endeavor and why it's so important to categorize your field of endeavor. Let me make the example of Schiaparelli Law Group, okay? So Schiaparelli Law Group, if we're going to argue, what is our field of endeavor, right? So we are lawyers, right? So I guess logically you could say our field is law. Now, if we are going to argue that Schiaparelli Law Group is an organization of distinguished reputation within the field of law, we may or may not make the case. I mean, perhaps we will, perhaps we won't, right? But why are we going to bother with it? I mean, why should we make it more difficult on ourselves by describing the field as law? Why don't we narrow the definition of the field? So instead of saying our field is law, we can say, actually, you know what? Our field is immigration law. And here we've gotten rid of 90% of the competitors. And within the field of immigration law, we can show, okay, this is what our achievements are, this is how we compare ourselves to other organizations, this is what our accolades are, these are what, news clips might exist about our firm, etc. Therefore, we have demonstrated that we have a distinguished reputation within the field of law. You know what? Within the field of immigration law, I can make it even better. Instead of saying that we have a distinguished reputation within the field of immigration law, how about we say, you know what, we have a distinguished reputation within the field of employment-based immigration law. Now we have narrowed the field even further, and we don't even have to worry about competing with every immigration law firm that exists in the country. We can only deal with the employment-based immigration law and argue that within the field of employment-based immigration law, we have a distinguished reputation, and we could present evidence for that, specific evidence regarding the distinguished reputation. That is the way it is done.
Amazing, yeah, exactly. That's what I always wanted, because we tend to see things only in certain light, and we have, when we say a reputable company, we're talking about huge companies, but a small company, once we narrow it down to the expertise, it will become a big fish in a small pond. That's the way it is. So it's exactly that. So yeah, that's very nice for you. So another thing that you use very often, Sharif, is the part. What we use is the part of the salary, or what you make, right? In terms of your income, to show that you are someone of extraordinary ability. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So the thing that we have to understand about high salary is that it is an objective measure of one's ability. This is why it is the most important criteria. I mean, you cannot play any games when it comes to salary. And the point that I like to underscore is that you cannot, one's salary is an absolute definition or determination of his or her ability. So there is no company in the United States of America that will overpay anyone. I can promise you that. Anybody that makes $400,000, $250,000, they are being paid that amount because the company has deemed it in its own interests to pay this individual that particular salary. They either fear that they're going to go to a different company, they recognize their abilities and don't want them to, be unpleased, etc. So this person commands the high salary. They have definitely earned that recognition for their abilities within their particular area of endeavor. That is why the organization is paying them that amount. This is, I would say, unless you're in a situation where you're working for your family business, or you're working for, somebody who's maybe, really loves you a great deal, there's nobody that's going to overpay you. You are going to be paid the amount that the company is going to, basically, they're going to pay you as much or as little as they think they could get by on. So anybody that's earning over $250,000, people who are earning $400,000, and this could be RSU, it could be bonuses, it could be base salary. Combine all that and tell me what your amount is. If we are getting over 300, if we are in 400,000, honestly, you are definitely going to be recognized as having sustained a claim, recognized in your field, because this is a capitalist society. Anybody making that kind of money, they are recognized in their field. There's no doubt about it whatsoever. No arm's length relationship is going to pay that amount just because they like how you look or how you act or how you behave. No way. I mean, you can get a letter of support from somebody who thinks you're a nice person. You cannot get proof of income from somebody who thinks you're a nice person. No way in hell. That is why salary is important, because it passes the BS test.
Exactly. I like it when you put it this way. And that's one of the things that people, I have to kind of explain in simple terms. People, especially we deal with a lot of people who are in STEM, and they tend to see things like scientists or mathematicians. They tend to see things black and white. In law, it's not black and white. There is this gray area where whoever makes the better argument wins, right? And that's actually how good lawyers proceed, especially in America. In other countries, of course, they know the judge, but here it's different. And a lot, but it's true, because I was talking to some of my colleagues abroad, and they're saying, oh, how are you winning like that? And I say, well, because we do a good job and we fight the right way. They say, oh, but you don't know any judge personally, you don't go to dinner with them, you don't play golf with them. No, we don't have to. So it doesn't work this way, and I just wanted to insert that there. Now, Sharif, tell me a little bit about the third most frequent element that you get in our cases, that out of those 10 for EB1. Then we were going to talk a little bit about national trust waiver, because that's another interesting part.
Sure. I think that one that is often overlooked and very important is reviewing and judging the work of others. Again, this is an area of huge misconceptions, because most people tend to think about reviewing and judging the work of others as reviewing and judging published or scholarly articles. Again, that's not the case. There's nowhere in the statute where it says reviewing and judging scholarly articles. It says reviewing and judging the work of others. Now, if you kind of peel the onion, I suppose, what you end up looking at is what do you need to find in order to review and judge the work of others. Number one, it must be outside of the normal course of your employment. So the reason why it must be outside the normal course of your employment is because you already have separate criteria for performing in a critical role within the organization that you are at. So it wouldn't be fair to get critical role and, part of your role at your employer is I review subordinates. Well, that doesn't count for reviewing and judging the work of others. And ultimately, every criteria is about demonstrating recognition in your field. So reviewing and judging the work of others is about showing that as a nationally recognized expert within my field, I have been requested, I have been asked to review and judge the work of others. That is what this criteria is about. Now, the actual, kind of adjudication manual that the officers use will give examples of reviewing scholarly articles or of maybe sitting on a PhD dissertation review or maybe a master's thesis of some sort. But it doesn't mean that those are the only ways. So, like, one way that, you can do this is, let's say, for example, you have been requested to review and judge the algorithms that another company or creator, developer has made. Now, the input, the complexity of those algorithms, what they are being used for becomes relevant. And your review of those algorithms and feedback that you have given of those algorithms or processes or whatever it is, that becomes relevant. So it's not about necessarily being a review of a scholarly article. That is complete and total misconception, and we can kind of reposition or substitute different kinds of review and then give a comparison. I mean, it has to be credible. You can't just throw up anything and expect it to be approved.
Sharif, I'm going to interrupt you. I think we have one caller. Let's take the caller and then we'll...
We do. Thank you. We have a caller. Hello, you're on air with Attorney Sharif and Attorney Shapirali. Sir, could you turn off the radio in the background? Yeah.
I'm working on a startup called Human Intelligence is Greater Than Artificial Intelligence, and I'm referring to USA and China trade war. The politicians in China which make money doesn't go to the lowest category. Similarly, in the trade war, the politicians in America who get money, it doesn't go to the lowest homeless people.
Well, that's a big philosophical debate, but it's not really relevant to our situation. Do you have any questions to immigration?
Sir, can you turn off the radio in the background, please? Hello?
I think we'll have to move forward. He question. He was just making a statement. So yeah, go ahead, Sharif.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm listening. We're listening to you.
Yeah. So again, just kind of understanding that when you're reviewing and judging the work of others, it does not necessarily have to be reviewing and judging published articles. It can be. I mean, those are wonderful. I don't want to undermine anyone who has published articles or published scholarly work or reviewed and judged scholarly work. I mean, I have many, many successful cases where we have scholarly articles, where we have reviewed and judged, published articles. And if there's an opportunity to review and judge, peer-reviewed, judge scholarly work, that's excellent, and I definitely encourage it. My point is just to also state that there's other ways to do it. So, if part of your process, whether it's academically or professionally, is to publish scholarly work, then publish scholarly work. Good. Let's do it. Let's present it. Let's, absolutely, 100% support that. All I'm saying is if it has nothing to do with the purpose of your endeavor, then don't do it. I mean, why not go paint a Mona Lisa? Because there's really, if you are, creating, like we mentioned, developing processes or developing, mobile applications, and you're going to go and publish a scholarly article, to me, the relationship between publishing a scholarly article and developing mobile application is as remote as the relationship of, painting a canvas portrait and developing applications. There's no correlation between the two. So if it's not part of your life, don't do it. If it's something that you're doing already, wonderful, great. That's my take. I don't know. I know it's a minority view, but I think that, having submitted hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of, cases in this category and being very, very successful at it, I think we have the track record to, be very confident in that position.
Exactly. This is the interesting part. And I know a lot of times people get confused.
Attorney Shah, I can't really hear you very clearly.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I apologize for that. So, Sharif, this is one thing that a lot of people always kind of get worried with lawyers, because we tend to see things that they don't see, and they don't really kind of appreciate or understand where we're going with the case. So now let's move to talk a little bit about the national interest waiver, because we talked about that I think 2 weeks ago when we had the show. But a lot of people ask me the same question again and again. Why do I have to file a national interest waiver? Where do I stand with the national interest waiver? But the truth is that the national interest waiver itself has its own benefits, especially for people who are downgrading. But also, it is important that we understand that there are options out there. It doesn't mean that you stick to labor certification, I-140, I-485. No, because there are opportunities out there that you're missing on. And a lot of people told me that at the later stage, say, hey, hold on a second, I wish I had known that. I would have already gotten a green card by now. So tell us a little bit about national interest waiver. I think we have another 4 minutes to go, right, Ira? So we can go ahead.
So let me kind of give you a quick take on national interest waiver. So I think, again, for anybody that is out there thinking about a national interest waiver, the main or the initial requirement is to have a master's degree. If you have a master's degree, you will be in a situation where you can file for national interest waiver. If you do not have a master's degree, then we go through a process of meeting certain criteria. Again, most people will meet that criteria because one of the criteria is a bachelor's degree. Another criteria is 10 years work experience. So just having those two alone will put you in a situation where, adding one more will not be that difficult. The most challenging aspect of the national interest waiver is to demonstrate that you are well positioned to advance your field of endeavor. Now, I just want to draw a comparison between that and the EB1A. So what the EB1A says is that you must demonstrate that you have sustained a claim that is recognized within your field of endeavor. So the difference between that very high standard, sustained a claim recognized within your field of endeavor, versus well-positioned to advance your field of endeavor. It's a much lower threshold to meet. It's like the difference between scaling Mount Everest and, hiking over a hill in Northern California. I mean, they're very, very different. So, having that understanding, it's not that, I don't want to say it's easy, but basically, if you are a well-accomplished professional in tech, in, maybe energy, in healthcare, in, a lot of these fields where we have high performers, and you are a high performer and you're successful, you're going to meet the requirement of a national interest waiver. And the value of having the national interest waiver cannot be understated. It's a self-petition. If things change, if you decide to spend some time in Canada, overseas, anywhere, you can always come back on the national interest waiver. You don't lose your place. If you're downgrading to EB3, it allows you to maintain an EB2 without having your employer, sponsor you. We've been doing a lot of national interest waiver. We've been very, again, it's very high approvals on those. And ultimately, I think that if you are, a lot of times people who do EB1A, we are also doing national interest waiver for them as well. It's not because we don't have confidence in their EB1A, but it's because a rational person will understand that they should take an all-of-the-above approach. All-of-the-above approach. This is your life is on the line, right? That's the way I look at it. And your livelihood, your kids' futures are there. So for those reasons, we do the national interest waiver. And also, if we see some advancement, there's a lot of talk of potential advancements in under the Biden administration, if it's possible, if what they're going to do. We didn't see much advancement with Obama. We actually saw the opposite. But so we're not really buying any of the rhetoric yet. But so far, it looks like there may be a more forceful measures there. And if there is advancement, then having that EB2 national interest waiver is going to be a very, very important resource. And even those of you who are outside of the U.S., if you're just thinking about coming to the U.S., an EB2 national interest waiver is a great, great way to do it.
Exactly. Sharif, I think we are done now. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week the same time. And just to let people know, anything we told you today is our opinion. You should not act or refrain to act solely on the information provided. You should contact an attorney if you have any questions. And the number to our office, 510-742-5887. And thank you, Sharif. Thank you for being here today and talking about EB1. Just to let people know, now the rules on the H-1B has been kind of relieved, so hopefully now people will have a better chance to file the H-1B. So give us a call, 510-742-5887. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Shah. Thank you, Attorney Sharif, for being here with us, and thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Remember to call the office number 510-742-5887 or log on to the website puralilaw.com. That's PEERALLYLAW.com. Stay tuned to Radio Zindagi. Jiye ja.